All right.
This is the
Well,
sound you
call the
can hear
meeting
there.
to order. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would you take roll call, please?
Yes, Commissioner Dibdall,
Here.
Commissioner Cronin,
Absent.
Commissioner Wire,
Here.
Commissioner Shaw,
Here.
Mr. Mayor Lindsay.
Here. You have before you the agenda for this evening.
This one, that's one, and then leave the agenda presented.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Mayor, can we pause 1 second? Kelly, can you hear us now? Okay.
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, that looks better. Okay. That looks-
Okay. Okay, you have before you the consent calendar.
Motion to approve the consent calendar.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Under unfinished business, approve second reading of ordinance number 1669, set membership of the airport board. Jameson, you want to address that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's no changes in this ordinance from the first reading. It will allow up to 2 of our airport board members to be residents of the county, but outside of the city. And also removes the ex officio county position since they would be eligible for the voting positions. Again, no changes from first reading.
Okay, questions or comments? If not, do we have a motion?
Make a motion to approve the second reading of ordinance number 1669, set membership of airport board.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 7, hearing on the issuance of economic development bonds. And again, I'll ask Jameson to start this discussion.
Again, this is an item that, this is another item that was discussed the last meeting. We haven't received any new information, but to recap, the last meeting, we had a resolution setting the hearing, which is for today, on the issuance of economic development bonds for the DSU Foundation. They would be the borrower on the $11 million bonds. And they use the city as a local government entity to have the public hearing, so the public has input into that process. The city is not responsible for any of this debt and is actually prohibited from contributing towards the repayment on the bonds. And I will stand by there for any questions.
And do we have anyone from the audience that would like to address this? Any questions at all from the commission?
Thank you so much.
Okay. So with that, this is a hearing. So with that, there isn't really a motion necessary on this particular one.
No public comment on the hearing.
No. So. We're on the hearing on the economic development bonds. I saw you came in late. I'm just gonna ask if you wanted to speak.
No, I'm sorry about that.
Nope, that's just fine. I just want to make sure that you were offered the opportunity. And then on number 8, approved resolution 2024-17, issuance of the economic development bonds for Dakota State University Foundation. And again, I'll ask Jameson to begin.
Nothing to add on this, same as the hearing.
Make a motion to approve 2024-17 issuance of economic development bonds for Dakota State University Foundation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Under number 9, public hearing for the temporary retail on sale alcohol license, Greater Madison Area Chamber of Commerce, downtown Madtown. And Eric, would you like to address this?
Sure. Eric Hartness with the Chamber of Commerce. This will be our 6th year of downtown and Madtown, and each year it
gets a little bigger and bigger. I've got a handout there of our dates and, the bands we have coming, along with, some of our sponsors for each night. And also listed on there are the themes for each night. July 16th, Ashley Wineland, she's a country artist from, Phoenix. Classic Car Night will be that night. July 23rd, Kat Perkins, she was here last year. She's been on The Voice. She opens for all of the Kid Rock concerts. That's also gonna be Ag Night, and something new we're adding for that night is a sanctioned kids pedal pole on that second block of Egan Avenue. July 30th, Bike Night, Soka Jukebox. They are from Missouri. It's a couple of university professors. They're not music professors. One's an accountant professor, but all of their songs are played with steel drums. So they play country and rock and 80s and 90s, but it's all got a little reggae feel to it. They were here 2 or 3 years ago. August 6th is National Night Out with all the first responders. Rowan Grace, she's from Rapid City. She just graduated high school. She was a finalist on The Voice a few years ago. She was here last year. Her career is really starting to kind of take off. She's gonna be opening for Scotty McCreery later this summer. She opened for Lady Antebellum last summer at the State Fair. August 13th is Josh Roy, another country band from Phoenix. The new theme that we have this year, that's gonna be Splash Bash. It's right before school starts. So it'll be all water inflatables. The library is gonna do their foam party that night that they did last year. So a lot of different water features on that second block. And then August 20th is Mallrats National Guard Night. Mallrats, they're from Minneapolis, and they do a lot of 90s rock songs with geysers and t-shirt guns and all kinds of different things that they'll be here performing with. So the other new thing that we're going to have, we've got a couple more food trucks this year. And then John Barry with the bike shop, the last 4 weeks, he's going to do a Strider obstacle course, those small bikes that don't have any pedals. He's gonna set up an obstacle course the last 4 weeks also. So we started with a half a block 6 years ago, and now we're up to 3 blocks. So, and I'm here for the, I don't know what the actual title of it is it alcohol license?
Yeah, retail on sale alcohol license, February.
And similar to all the other years, the United Way will run that beer area for us. They get a portion of the proceeds plus all the tips. And then the Chamber of Commerce is kind of the, we're the ones that order the beer and get it down there.
All right. Anyone else from the audience wanna speak on? This is the public hearing portion. Okay, seeing none, Commissioner.
Are we ever gonna have volunteer come?
Are they still alive?
6 years.
Are they alive still?
Yes, they are.
Oh, okay.
They're still touring.
Mars is.
I won't rule them out.
Okay. I
Okay.
appreciate that.
Maybe year 7.
We can, I mean, we can have a competition with DSU on the 27th of August and see if we can bring a better
Uh-huh.
show.
Yeah.
Other questions or comments? If not, we will move into number 10. Approve the temporary retail on sale alcohol license for the Greater Madison Area Chamber of Commerce for the downtown Madtown events.
I'll make a motion to approve the temporary retail on sale alcohol license Greater Madison Area Chamber of Commerce downtown in Madtown.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 11, first reading of ordinance number 1670, regulating ATVs and dirt bikes. And Jameson, I will ask you to address this first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Oh, here we go, off the page. Ordinance 1670 regulates recreational ATVs and dirt bikes. This was drafted by staff after we had received a couple calls from residents regarding neighboring properties who have dirt bikes on their vehicles that were operated. And they were complaining about the noise that's caused from that. After looking at it as staff, we determined there was nothing within the current city ordinance that we would do or could do to regulate that. And so we bring it to you. No staff recommendation on this, but this is something that if you would like to regulate those vehicles for purposes of noise in the community, this would be the vehicle by which you could do that. If you are comfortable with the way that things are running currently, then you could turn down this ordinance. Most specifically, this ordinance regulates these vehicles by adding a 50-foot operation setback from property lines, 100-foot setback from residential dwellings off the property, so that'd be neighboring houses. And then it also puts in the restriction from 8 AM to 8 PM with some rest periods in there. So this would prohibit ATVs and dirt bikes being used in most properties in the city, and would push them towards larger properties that are more suitable for those activities. Again, staff will stand by for any questions, but we don't have a recommendation on the ordinance.
Questions or comments from staff?
How many complaints have we received?
Justin, something you can answer?
We're probably in the neighborhood of, I would say 6 to 8 this spring, and it's all revolving around one property for the most part.
We used to have a property on Washington Avenue and that, but when I visited with you, they said that they had moved. And that, so,
Correct, yes, that would have been on the corner
yeah,
of, that would have been on the corner of Center and Washington, and that family is no longer at that
that resident.
residence, yes.
So maybe a good second question for the commission is, you've talked about how many complaints you've gotten on one property. Can you speak towards how many incidents in the town we have of ATV and dirt bikes being used for recreational use?
We've got at least 2 other locations that we know that are going on that we haven't seen any complaints on. Those other activities at those other residents have not been long-term. The complaint that we get on this one property is that it's going on for hours on end, all day, and it's disturbing the neighborhood.
And if you addressed it with them?
We have talked to them, and my understanding is, from what my officers have said, there's no compromise there.
So it's a noise versus safety.
Correct.
So
I think that's all the questions I have.
Any other questions? Kelly, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I guess I just have more of an opinion. I hope you guys can hear me okay. I'll just be honest, I don't necessarily love this. I hate to restrict people's use of their own property. The 50-foot setback seems to be pretty extreme, in my opinion. However, I understand noise can be an issue, but with that being said, I'm sure, people have, loud lawnmowers and other motorized equipment too. So I guess, in the wake of just keeping this moving forward, I would make a motion to approve it as is, with the caveat of hopefully get some community feedback on being for this or against it, I guess, would be my opinion here.
So with that, if we were to move forward now, there would be 2 weeks before a second reading, correct? And so during that time period then your thought would be to hope to have more public input?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
Justin, does the home owner of this issue we're having understand that we're going to put this policy or this ordinance in place?
I have not had that discussion with them, no. I have not.
I'm gonna second Kelly's motion, and I would also like to have you go visit with them and tell them that this is coming.
Okay. I have no issue with
And
that.
also compromise.
Sure.
other discussion?
Where did we come up with the 50 and 100 feet and the 8 to 8? Do those line with other?
Yeah, I don't think,
Noise.
I don't think David's on, I was gonna ask him, he provided this as a template, and I believe it's an example that he has seen in other communities.
So that's something we can.
Yeah, and you can
work
certainly,
with as well. I
yeah,
mean,
and you can make amendments to any portion of this ordinance if you wanted to adjust setbacks or the timing or anything like that.
We've got 2 weeks to work with it. So if we change it between now and 2 weeks, we can make any changes we want. This is just essentially to get it going, correct?
Yeah, so we would have a second reading at the next meeting. If there'd be any changes made at that meeting which are deemed substantial, then we'd have to have a third reading and it would just carry out another 2 weeks. If small changes are made which don't significantly change the intent of the ordinance, we could have final passage still at that meeting.
Okay.
If you know of any changes you'd like to propose that are significant, you could certainly make them today. And if they're made, then you'd be able to have more discussion at the next meeting, and final approval if desired.
Chief, would this be helpful for your staff in that when addressing these issues?
It would give us some teeth, absolutely. It's not something that we would necessarily have to write a ticket every time. You know, we try to work with the public, give people warnings, to try and come to a mutual understanding. Right now, if somebody does not agree or does not follow, trying to compromise with the neighbors, we really don't have a course of action here. We don't feel that we have anything on the books that would allow us to cite if in fact they're not willing to work with us. This would give us some teeth. It doesn't mean that we're gonna roll up to a property the first time and start writing tickets. It's, hey, I don't know if you're aware of this. We need to work together. Here are some parameters. We'd ask that you follow them. You know, we're a small enough community. We know our neighbors. We have a great relationship with our residents and we would look to work with them on that. I would like to say, just very briefly, I've had some questions on this and it's about restricting ATV use on city streets, and that is not what this is. This is strictly on private property. This would not restrict ATVs that are properly licensed to operate on our city streets.
And looking back in the ordinances that we do regulate snowmobiles,
We do, absolutely.
you know, and we've got quite a lengthy policy on the use of snowmobiles within the city. But we do not address the ATV and the dirt bikes, you know, and Jameson and I visited about, you know, putting it in, and there were just too many things about operation of a snowmobile that just didn't fit with the ATV and the dirt bike, so. This ordinance is there, you know, to inform the public that, you know, we have had some complaints and, you know, give them 2 weeks to come and address it with us and see if there's compromises that people would like to see changed. Other questions or comments?
I'm with Kelly in the fact that I don't like telling people what to do on their own property. But I also understand that when you deal with noise complaints and it is excessive. I understand that side of it as well, so.
Well, one of the things in that kind of frustrates me is when our police officers have asked them. And they basically have thumbed their nose, and that, you know, that's not really a way to be neighborly.
That's where I struggle with the compromise piece.
That's what we're trying to do, is what's a happy median, because I understand, I'm with you on that. If it's their property, they have a right to do what they want on their property, but we also have to look at the entire neighborhood and, what if this is something that we found that's out there with other cities, I understand that. What are other alternatives? Yeah, we're open for change and suggestions, absolutely.
We don't specify gas or electric.
Well, most of the time, an electric bike or
Quiet.
UTV are gonna be quiet,
So-
correct?
We're okay with that.
At this point in time, the issues, the complaints that we're getting focus around the noise aspect, correct?
It's not like they're setting up a bike track and ripping her up.
Yeah, they are. So.
Other questions or comments? We do have a motion and a second. If there are no further questions or comments, then that, I will ask for the vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Number 12, authorize the mayor to sign change order number 1, Madison System Improvements, Segment 5, with the Asphalt Surfacing Company Incorporated. Jameson, do you want to begin the discussion or defer to Ryan?
This change order is for Madison System Improvement Segment 5A. That would be South Union Avenue and Southwest Fourth Street, Asphalt Servicing Company. This change order is made up of 2 components. One is to add a bid item for dual type B drop inlet with frame and grate. This is a substitute for a single proposed type B inlet. This is done to better facilitate storm runoff and then concur with the drainage analysis completed during the design of the project. That amount is $3,426.88. And the other component of the change order is addition of 48-inch RCP storm sewer pipe. When they had uncovered the existing sanitary sewer, there were the invert elevations required them to go out a little bit further and do the tie-ins in a different location. The storm sewer line that runs through that intersection is it's a strange pipe. It's made up of segments that lock together rather than a continuous pipe. And so when you dig under that, there's not a lot of support for that. So going an additional 20 feet will allow them to have a safe trench and allow them to be able to support that. That is in the amount of $5,950.60. So the total change order is $9,377.48. And I would recommend approval.
Questions or comments?
Maybe not specifically to these 2 change or this change order, but how are we documenting the current work? Are we videoing the trenches, for when this has to be done in 50 years to try to eliminate
Yeah.
the surprises?
We do. So we take a lot of photographs. There's no video, but of course, we're surveying all of those locations of any fittings and any bends and where the pipe changes from plastic to clay and what have you. So we're GPSing all of those fittings, and then Banner is providing some surveying as well. And we do document the photos, and we can attach those right to our GIS system, so we can look back in future years and know what we did there.
Then I assume Prunty's redlining their work when they're done and.
Yeah, correct. So this contractor, ASCO, they'll provide, as-built when the project's done. We'll make sure that those as-built are incorporated and make sure that those line up with our survey shots.
Thank you.
Other questions? Do we have a motion?
Make a motion to authorize the mayor to sign change order number 1, Madison System Improvement Segment 5A to ASCO.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 13, authorize the mayor to sign change order number 2, Madison System Improvement, Segment 3, Prunty Construction Company Incorporated. And again, Ryan, would you like to address this one?
Yeah, so this project is segment 3, that would be the Roosevelt Avenue and Maplewood Drive, project. It's made of 3 components. One component is to provide owner furnished temporary surfacing. We're using some of our millings from past projects to create a vehicle access needed for a resident with accessibility issues. So we've created a couple of temporary roads to allow for, emergency access and for them to get out and go to doctor's appointments. They're in the middle of blocks and it's just very difficult for them to walk. So we provided these. That is in the amount of $2,950. The second component is an additional bid item for root grinding, as we were removing the curb and gutter and planning for installation. Some maple trees along Maplewood Drive are very close to the curb and gutter, and the owner would like to keep those trees, and we would like for him to be able to keep those trees as well. I had reached out to an arborist, and he had recommended that if we did some root grinding, that would probably be okay. It wouldn't damage the tree too bad. This would then prevent us from snagging those roots and further damaging the tree. That's $3,344. And the last portion is an addition of a concrete approach on Roosevelt Avenue. This driveway is just very broken up, and we don't believe that we should really pour curb and gutter against this driveway. It probably should have been included in the initial set plans. That's my fault, not the banners. But that net change cost would be $2,082. The total change order would then be $8,376. And I feel that all of these prices are fair considering the.
Questions or comments? If not, do we have a motion?
Make a motion to approve. Let's see, motion to approve or authorize mayor to sign change order number 2, Madison System Improvement Segment 3, Prunty Construction Company Incorporated.
Second,
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 14, approve city administration building change order number 39, IT Director's Office. And Jameson,
Yep, we'll take
you wanna
this one.
address this one?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When this building was designed some time ago, we did not have the IT director position created. And now that we have that position, we want to make sure that we have sufficient office space for the IT director. This is an increase of about $28,000. This covers everything from the framing, the sheetrock, to the sprinklers and the HVAC, to the casework and the flooring. It's going to be put into the shelf space that's planned on the second floor of the building, which is also directly adjacent to the IT closet. So that's going to be convenient for him working in that area. And just to recap, the commission had approved, giving the city administrator authorization to make change orders up to $25,000. That's why this is the first one you've seen in quite some time, because it's over that $25,000 mark. Stand by for questions.
Okay, questions or comments?
I'm still on the budget.
Yes, yeah, we started the contingency fund of $100,000 on the $10.1 million project. The first change order that the commission made was to adjust the precast concrete, and that saved about $100,000. So we've been working with essentially a $200,000 contingency fund, and we are still operating within that fund.
And the nice thing is that this is going into a space that was an open space, for future use, and so it doesn't require any changes to the main part of the building at all.
I'll make a motion to approve the city administration building change order number 39, IT Director Office.
Second,
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 15, discussion and action regarding Egan Avenue design components. And
Just put that here for reference for now.
thank you for having me again. I'm Matt Corcoran with KLJ. This is probably the third or fourth time I've been here to talk about the project. We've been methodically going through the design process, and in early May, we finished 75% plans based on the previous direction we got from the commission, and we had a open house. We presented those 75% plans and got some more comments from the public, and we just want to run those comments past you, and then also get some decision on or some direction on some of the items that we left open during the last visit. I did provide a summary of the comments. I hope you guys were able to look at them. We split them up by topic, just based on how they came up during the meeting. The first topic is roadway width. So if you'll remember the previous discussions, we had talked about maintaining standard parking lanes and then having 16-foot wide driving lanes. And then the remainder of the corridor is what makes up the median width. In the areas where there's angle parking, the median ends up being a little bit narrower. And then in the areas where there's parallel parking on both sides, it ends up being about a 22-foot median. There was lots of discussion about the median width, and we try to direct that towards, well, what does that mean for the driving lane width? Ultimately, the 16-foot driving lane width is the minimum that we would recommend. Basically, that's a good standard for a median street where you can't do U-turns, or you can't, go into the other lane of traffic if there's a broke down vehicle or something like that. The maximum driving lane width, we would say, is around 20. We'd probably like to stay below that because 20 feet of pavement is essentially 2 lanes. I guess we're leaving it up to the commission on, do they want to stick with the 16-foot driving lanes, or would we like to increase that somewhere between that 16 or 20 or above? I guess we would be looking for direction at the end of this discussion here. As far as the width, like I said, it's recommended for 16 because that was the minimum, and one of our objectives was to minimize the amount of pavement along the corridor. There isn't really a safety benefit based on the width of the median or anything. It's just basically math on, what the width is today versus what it would be in the future. Then there were concerns about the 16-foot width being too narrow during winter conditions with snow plows, windrowing along the median or in the parking lane, or vice versa. The next item was bump outs. We had a pretty good discussion on bump outs. I think we previously covered that it's difficult for snow plowing operations, and likely the city is going to have to modify their operations to accommodate those. Previously, the commission committed to bump outs on Egan, only on Egan, between 5th and 9th. There wasn't really a whole lot of opposition to that configuration. There was one resident that asked that it be extended to 4th. And then the residents or the property owners at 3rd want no bump outs whatsoever. So again, that's another question that we're putting to the commission. There was another concern about deliveries coming at DSU, and we've designed all of the intersections for the, I guess, expected design vehicle. The intersection at DSU and 8th is designed with a semi-tractor to be able to make the turn. Most of the other intersections are with a school bus. So yeah, that would be the next item that we're gonna ask is whether we're gonna stick with bump outs from 5th to 9th, or we're gonna extend them to 4th, or we remove them altogether. The next topic is landscaping. One resident would like us to try and save the current trees in the median. We did a tree survey and provided it. It's actually over there on the counter in December. Most of the trees in the median are in pretty rough shape and likely would not survive construction. We are proposing to replace the trees with more of a canopy tree than an ornamental tree, so they would be taller, provide more shade. Obviously, it'll take a while for them to be established. but, hopefully it would be a benefit to the corridor with these other, more mature and larger trees. We're also gonna be, using trees that have, a track record of surviving and thriving in these types of environments. So many of the trees we're looking at are being used in other streets with medians in Sioux Falls and have had really good success with them. Questions about irrigation in the median, we're planning to have, sprinklers run over to the median so the grass can stay, healthy. And we are designing the median to have easy access for mowers to get up and on and maintain the grass that's there. The next question was on, tree replacement. So, as one of the previous topics, many of the trees within the right of way are likely to be, taken down because they won't survive construction. When you tear out the curb and the sidewalk on either side of those trees, it's very hard to keep them alive. It's my understanding that the city does not replace those within the boulevard. For myriad of reasons, I think chiefly is because of the other utilities that are in the boulevards. They don't like to have to work around trees either. However, there will be a few trees that are very close to the back of walk that will also likely need to be, dealt with. We're trying to minimize those as much as possible, but, history says that, if you try and save the tree and, something goes wrong that first year or something like that, then you have a dead tree that's overhanging your brand new sidewalk and it just causes even bigger mess. So we're trying to be proactive on that. To my understanding, the city has not considered, what to do with those trees that are actually on private property, but are affected by the project. So that's something that you guys might want to consider. You're going to have trees as part of the project anyway, so, it's whether you want to add back in, 4 or 5, additional just to replace those trees that are lost in private property. And then another question was on the retaining walls. Retaining walls over 30 inches need to have guardrails. We are going to try and limit that as much as possible. So it may mean that we need to slope back some lawns to get that height down to where it's reasonable. There's nothing really to consider there until we get closer on those plans and have something to actually work with.
Does SHPO have any requirements on railings?
No, they would be more on the aesthetics of it. We haven't necessarily narrowed in on the aesthetics. We have proposed to some of the landowners that are going to get retaining walls on what their thoughts were. Their thought is something, I guess, more, I'll say, natural looking. But they did not like the idea of having at least the ones we've talked to so far, did not like the idea of having a masonry finish that has to be maintained. So we were gonna look at the possibility of doing maybe a form liner that makes it look like boulders and then either staining it or something like that. But the thought initially was to take field stone, like the ones that are out there, and put a masonry face on the cats in place retaining walls. But there's a downfall that they have to be maintained, regrouted and things like that, and the property owners did not like that idea, so. The next topic was lighting. We had discussed using standard style lighting with decorative accents. I did provide pictures of those to Ryan. Basically, these are standard style lighting. We would use ones that have lights on both sides. They'd be double heads. And then the base is just a sort of a decorative looking. But this way you don't have to have, special lights on hand or things like that. Most of these are just standard parts for your luminaires and things like that, and black poles, essentially. And the next topic was the shared use path. So there was quite a bit of discussion on this. We had initially discussed having a shared use path along the east side of the corridor. The main reason was because there's a wide sidewalk south of Second on the downtown has on both sides, and then DSU's frontage also has a wide sidewalk. So there's like a gap of 3 blocks, something like that. where there's not the wide sidewalk. We're going to be improving the whole corridor. Much of that 3 blocks is going to end up having to have somewhat of a wider sidewalk anyway, because it's going to be adjacent to the curb rather than a boulevard now. So it's gonna go from your 4'8" up to at least 6. So the previous thought was, well, let's just do a shared use path on that side, and then that falls with the objective of having a gateway from downtown to DSU. And like I said, most of those blocks already had a wide sidewalk anyway, so you're not really changing the configuration much. There was many residents that feel doesn't fit a historical neighborhood. There was questions on whether there was studies done to justify the bicycle traffic along Egan. We have not done any studies. Like I said, safety was not a objective of this project. You guys don't appear to have a safety issue on Egan. It's more of the corridor is in rough shape and in need of a facelift. And if you're doing the improvements, you know, wanting to get a nice product in the end. And we're asking you guys to tell us what that product is. There was also concerns about whether a wider sidewalk left the property owners more liable for someone hurting themselves. I'm not sure that that is any different than any other regular sidewalk in town. Let's see, and then concerns about snow removal for a wider sidewalk. Basically, they would have to move nearly double the amount of snow as a standard sidewalk. As well as when the sidewalk is cracked or needs replacement, they would have to pay for essentially double the amount of sidewalk to replace. So that's the next question on whether you want to continue with the shared use path on the east side as we discussed, or remove it completely. Also consider the ongoing maintenance and replacement costs of that shared use path, and whether when it is replaced, whether there's a thought to share with the city, so they only pay for their 4'8" that they're mandated and the city covers the extra. I know that that's some places that other communities do as well. Next topic was construction phasing. There's 2 blocks, I believe, that do not have alleys on the west side. And the concern there is during construction, if we maintain 2-way traffic on Egan, they're not gonna have parking, very close to their properties. Those properties just happen to be very close to DSU on the other side. So the thought was, if the city could make a form a relationship or an agreement with DSU to open up some of their permitted parking for the residents on those blocks that do not have alleys during construction, so that they could park relatively close to their properties rather than having to go further down on a side street, or could be 2 blocks away in some cases. The final item was on flooding issues. Basically, the whole corridor is in the floodplain. We are doing a model for the design that proves that there's no rise in the floodplain. That's required by FEMA. It gets reviewed by the city and FEMA. In the end, I don't think there's going to be any concerns there, but one of the residents did ask about it, so we wanted to make sure that you guys understood the situation. So I have 4 items that, I'm looking for direction on you or from you. The driving lane width, whether we want to stick with 16 or increase it. Whether bump outs from 5th to 9th on Egan are appropriate, or you'd like to see more or less of them. The tree replacements on private property, whether that's something you would consider as part of the project. And then the shared use path on the east side, if you'd like to continue with that as part of the design, or you'd like to transition back to more of a standard sidewalk. I will keep in mind on that, on the blocks that have retaining walls, it's gonna be at least a 6-foot sidewalk, because you need to have clearance from the wall and the curb when that sidewalk is against the curb. So it ends up being wider simply because it's against the curb. The same on the block from 2nd to 3rd. Those property owners did request having curb walk, so they're gonna have a 6-foot walk as well.
Questions or comments?
That was a lot. Was DSU in attendance?
We have had at least 2 individual meetings with DSU. Yeah, and it was held on DSU campus.
Okay. I'm looking. I mean, just at the first. Roadway width, I mean, is that a truck route or is that a delivery point for them?
It does appear that they use it mainly going south back to Second. However, when we talked to them and looked at their facilities, there is no reason that they actually have to use Egan. And during construction, they wouldn't. They would have to go back up to 9th and then over to Washington.
In terms of width on Egan Avenue. I would prefer that it stay, you know, at the 16-foot, because 16 feet, you can have 2 vehicles pass each other. And currently, Highway 34 has 10-foot lanes, which are 20 feet. And so on Highway 34, the semis pass each other just fine going up that, you know, going up the highway there, and so is everybody else. And that's one of the issues in that, you know, that we have is people from, especially from out of town, and that, look at that as a 4-lane street. And when there's nobody in the parking lane, and that they'll pass you on either side, right side or left side. And 16-foot, the meetings that I've attended and you've shown in that 16-foot meets, you know, the requests of people, you know, moving semis, parking boats and trailers. You know, so I guess I'm comfortable with it being 16-foot. We do have, Gary, do you see any issues in that with that for snow removal?
Width-wise, no, bump outs, I will never.
And I support you. That's where my thoughts are too, because I've seen too many times in that, you know, they get whacked. And just in a very short time, we've got replacement issues and repair issues, you know, and so. And then not only that, it's very expensive on the equipment. So.
What's a standard city street 33?
That includes parking
Parking.
of
The whole-
how much?
That includes the right.
What we plan parking for?
Does that?
Technically, like 7 is the standard.
14 of the 33 would be parking.
Our baseline is 12-foot lanes for most streets. Sometimes local streets have 11-foot.
Kelly, you're on?
Yeah, I don't really have strong feelings either way on the street width here. You know, if it's 16 to 20, I mean, is a happy medium 18 or do we want to stay at 16?
Did Fire Chief Minner, did he look at this as well? Have any feedback?
I've not talked to the fire chief. I would assume, I mean, he would be comfortable with this width. This is wider than any other street
Right.
lane, so. I wouldn't anticipate there'd be any issues. I mean, we've done all the turning radiuses for large apparatus vehicles and. I think that would be his biggest thing, would be making sure he can safely get his fire trucks there and navigate those around, and I'm confident that he could.
And this configuration is the same as Phillips Avenue from downtown to Falls Park into Falls, which is very heavily traveled. And there's a lot of businesses and a lot of things going on there.
So I'm content leaving it at 16 feet.
I have a question. Is this snow?
Mike, if you'd come, up, please, for the audience.
Was this snow gonna have to all be hauled? Like, are we gonna have to plow it and then haul it away like we do on Egan? Or are we gonna be able to take it to the center? And
I'm
leave
gonna
it?
ask you and Garrett.
Cause that's gonna be where we would want to adjust that probably up a little bit from 16. Because right now, we don't have any room and we have to haul it off after every storm. If we have a little wider median, we can maybe make it 2 storms before we have to haul it off, but I foresee that we'd have to always haul that out. Just safety wise.
And then if you're at 16 and we're not to the, they try as hard as they can to get it to the gutter, but. Last year when the snow's piling up, you're 3 foot from the curb in spots because of trying to get the equipment through and stuff.
Well,
So it's gonna get narrower and narrower during the winter time.
and keep in mind, we've got 24 feet, because there'll be 8-foot parking plus 16-foot driving.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm just saying.
Like I
you're
said,
gonna-
I'm pretty good with the width, so just when you throw a bump out in there in the middle of the night, you just, I don't care how careful you are. You're busting them up, and then you might have a piece of equipment that's down all day, and then you have the mechanic that helps us plow too. And he's in fixing the equipment, and it just, we've just went through that scenario so many times that. You just can't support that, but the width, I'm willing to negotiate on that or whatever. I mean, this is just my opinion. I don't.
A prime examples, look at the library sidewalk, there's the bump out there right there by the library, and you can see how banged up it is and how, and you drive by it in the winter time and you're constantly trying to work around that little radius.
Well, I appreciate your opinions, because you guys are the ones that are out there at 2 in the morning.
As to Mike's question on like the median, I would say if the question is, can you use the median for snow removal for depositing it? I would say yes, then.
Yeah.
You do now, it's very narrow, but you do it
But
now.
my thing is
You'd have more space in the
I
median.
have almost 2.5 times more space.
yeah, I understand that, but if you were parking and then if you wanna make your lane 18 foot, if you made it 20 foot, at least then you'd have 2 more foot of driving lane to play with in the snow. When it
Well,
plows out.
either way, you'll still have that 2 to 4 foot that we're kind of playing with between driving lane and median. Either way, it'll be there in storage for snow depositing. Like you can still have a 16-foot lane, whether it's 16 foot wide or 18 foot or 20 foot wide, and that same space will be available for the snow. Does
Because-
that make sense?
By my understanding, the sidewalk's gonna be right on the curb on both sides,
No, on only the one side.
on the one side, so you can't take the snow that way, cause you'll bury all the residents. I mean,
Yeah.
you put a 6-foot sidewalk and take it to their sidewalk, they're gonna be 3 foot deep that's pretty miserable.
Yeah.
So,
Right now, it's too narrow. And we have, when we clean those intersections, by the time we get done, especially on a bad storm, we are way too high on the intersection, so then we gotta go back and immediately take that out. And as far as trees down the middle, we have to really get something that goes up in the air and out, because the ornamental trees are just, they're so hard to trim that we can't sweep that, we can't plow it. So that's where I have issues there, but
the ornamentals are definitely an issue, cause you can't trim them even to ordinance, because they'll look like a twig sticking up if we take everything off the sides of them. They tear the mirrors off all the time on the equipment with them and stuff like that too, so it's kind of a street department, park department battle, I guess, when it comes to the trees in the boulevard.
That was kind of part of that meeting width too. If you have that wider meeting width, now you got room.
Yeah,
we got a little more room to play
Yeah.
there. So, yeah, I would rather,
but if you plant like a lindens or something that goes straight up, that a nice canopy tree, if that's what. I mean,
At the last meeting I attended, and Matt, maybe you can mention, the types of trees and that.
Yeah, we have actually a board over there with 3 of the species they'd be looking at. Like I said, all of them have been tried in similar configurations in Sioux Falls and around the region. all hold up pretty well and seem to be. Already within that median.
What is the overall project cost increase from 16, 18, 20 feet?
I couldn't say that. We have not, looked at that cost, but like I said, we started with the minimum amount of pavement. Minimum recommended pavement, simply because that was one of the objectives we were given, was minimize the pavement as much as possible. Sure.
And we know that long term, it's gonna be a lot less maintenance to maintain less pavement than it would be to maintain more. So.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mike.
I would be in favor of taking the bump outs out. Just-
I'm not one that's in favor of the bump outs, because I know the issues we.
Can we, on the roadway width, I think that's kind of maybe the first one on the list. We talked about 16 foot, 18 foot, 20 foot, somewhere in there. I mean, and there's other numbers as well, but can we get any direction on that item to start?
You know, 34 is 20 foot for the 2 lanes and that, so I just soon stay under that, but if our staff feels that 18 is better, I could live with 18 foot.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, 14-foot forward on our plow, but it's always angled, so.
What would be ideal? With? Or doesn't it matter?
I would say that would be fine. because they-
But remember, the 16 foot's gonna be in addition to the, is it 8 foot for parking?
8
foot.
Parking?
Yeah, it'd be 18.
Right. So you'd be talking about plowing a 36 foot section of pavement.
Yeah.
And whether that's 1 pass or 2 passes or 3 passes is gonna depend how much snow they have.
I could live with 18.
I'd like to know that, like you asked, what a running foot, I mean, what do we got, a half mile, quarter mile there? Times 2 feet, what that would be.
Maybe I'll phrase Amy's question differently. Is 18 foot of pavement more expensive or less expensive than 16 foot pavement?
Oh, more.
I would assume
Yeah.
more. So you know that if project cost goes up, the wider you make the road.
Right.
But I'd say it's important for us to make the road the width that we prefer. And just like all of the specifications here, and the project cost will be what it is.
Yeah, basically you're adding 10% more pavement, essentially.
And so basically that would drop the median from 22 feet to 18 feet. Because you'd be cutting it back on both sides.
Which would be somewhat difficult. I think we would like to maintain a 20-foot median as much as possible, simply for mowing.
Can you
So
elaborate
would that
on
make it a 17-foot lane then?
Yes, you could go that direction. The reason for the mowing is because you have to have a mower on both sides of the tree without hitting the tree. And, if the tree ends up being a foot wide at the base or 18 inches wide at the base, you're necking that down on the side, you're gonna hit the tree more often. And that's one of the reasons that your trees are in tough shape as they are. They've all been hit by mowers.
Mike says no, his guy's never.
We don't have a mower that'll fit on the one right now.
Oh,
So did you work that backwards? I would assume a 60-inch deck. Is
We can
pretty
go from
common.
12 foot to 5 foot with our mowers, so. And then it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, but. I mean. It'd be nice to have it at least 10, so that they're not swinging into traffic with them. At the back with their oversteers.
So then what I'm hearing is recommending a 17-foot driving lane with an 8-foot parking lane.
I think that's a happy medium.
Works for me. Kelly?
I'm good with that.
Dre?
Yeah, I'm good.
is there anybody else?
Okay, so 17-foot driving lane, 8-foot parking lane, 20-foot median.
You wanna ask anybody else from the public? I don't know.
Is there anyone from the audience?
Not reference to this road, yeah.
Yeah, just the roadway width right now. Yeah, one thing at a time.
I'm afraid that if you get it too wide, you're not gonna cut down on that slowing down of people. It's not gonna be within, if the wider it is, the faster people are gonna go. And I think if you get any wider than that, you're gonna have the same trouble we have right now with cars.
Well, one thing about it, 17-foot driving lane is gonna be smaller than what we have right now.
Okay, and that's great. We need
Yeah.
a smaller driving lane.
What is it now?
Yeah.
Ish.
That median's only 6 feet wide, so.
It's probably around 24 now. something like that.
24.
This should noticeably change it.
Yep.
And hopefully help.
Mhm.
Everyone comfortable with 17? And a 20-foot median? Okay, I think that's the direction that you're hearing.
Okay.
Okay. Bump outs, I have as number 2. Personally, I'm not in favor of bump outs because of the damage to the equipment, the extra time it takes for our employees. And I don't see that we have a safety issue on Egan Avenue, you know, in the 20-mile zone that, you know, that they would really make any changes. So that's my personal opinion.
Wow, they look nice. It's not ruining our equipment.
Kelly?
I thought we kind of already decided this a while back, that we were gonna do it just by DSU there.
Yeah, the
For-
last discussion was around DSU from 5th up to 9th. They have designed them throughout just because it's easier to remove than it is to add, but the intent has been just around the campus. And I think what I'm hearing from a couple of the commissioner elected officials here is removing them entirely. I think is what you're stating.
That would be my preference. We currently don't have them and I don't see an issue. I do see an issue, you know, by putting them back in with maintenance and being able to clean them and having the street sweeper, you know, be able to sweep. You know, so I guess my preference is, you know, the straighter the line on the curb and that, the easier it's gonna be maintained and the longer it'll look nice.
Did DSU have a strong preference on this for walkability reasons?
Not really. You know, I think that because their angle parking is so far back from the road, we might still end up with somewhat of a bump out, but it won't be any different than what they have today. So it shouldn't be any more of a nuisance than it is today. We'll try to improve it as much as we can.
I think they are under the understanding that it was gonna be 5th and 9th, so I don't know if they'll, you know, what their reaction would be if you took those away, because we didn't propose that to them, but yeah, they hadn't expressed anything.
Ryan, do you have any thoughts or?
About bump outs or roadway width or,
Bump outs, yeah.
yeah. You know, I would like to see the bump outs from 5th to 9th. I think it looks very nice. I think it's a compromise, yeah. You don't do the bump outs from 4th south. That's for the residential area. I think that's pretty reasonable. I think having those bump outs 5th to 9th is a nice addition, but I'm not running the snow plows and I acknowledge that, so that would be my opinion, but
Will the bump outs have grass? You know, or are they all concrete or?
I don't think we've got that far yet. But
Because then who's in charge of the maintenance, the homeowners? Where they're at, if you're on 5th and 7th.
I would think so, yeah.
You on for it?
I'm for them. I like them. I'm all on the beautifying side of Egan Avenue. I understand all these concerns that are coming up. But if we're gonna do it, let's do it right. And let's do it from As soon as you turn on Egan Avenue, you're there. Instead of having to go all the way up to Fifth Street before you really get the full effect of what we've done. And I'm sure the opposite. She's my neighbor.
Just the opposite. I agree with the maintenance people. I agree with that it's gonna be more of a headache for the city.
I'm just gonna add in here, the one winter in that, we tried the, blade with the, help me out, Gary. We hit the curb with it once, cost us $8,000. And that grader was down. And so then that, really hampered snow removal, for quite a while, and that till that machine was repaired and back up on operation. And, we don't have a lot of excess equipment. That's where I'm coming from. Dre, what are your thoughts?
I'm jumping back now a little bit on the driving with, if we're looking at not having the, the bump outs, then do we need that extra foot, for the trucks? I'm again, just looking at a rendering here to try to visualize what it would look like, but I agree, it would look nice, but trying to look at the other, I looked at a few bump outs we have in town and they're all chipped. And some of them are only,
Well, here's a prime example of the parking lot of a new store in town. Two winters on it in the fall. As careful as you can be, and it's just so hard to find this, even if we flag them, they're just, you can snag.
You can't see them. That's the thing when you're doing it. You can't see nothing when you're going by feel. Because the snow, when you got 12, 14 inches of snow and you're just.
Then sometimes we have trouble with the straightness, so. It's tough tired.
What do other cities do about this? Is there a new product coming out that we add to snowplows to go around bump outs?
It's called a hand shovel.
Oh, well, I'm just wondering, with all the new and upcoming things, I would think other cities have had this issue that have bump outs, and I was just curious on how they handle it.
Yeah.
I don't have an answer for you there.
That's okay.
It's just a constant balance between, what you want your aesthetics to be and your ease of your maintenance.
They look nice in Phoenix. But I have yet to see a 12-inch snowfall in Phoenix, so. But beyond that, Pipestone did this years ago and that, and then I don't know how many years they had it in and then they took it and redid the whole, Main Street. And that, because it was more upkeep and maintenance and, I'm not familiar with other cities in our area.
Brookings has them.
Brookings has them.
Yeah, Main Street.
Yeah, right downtown. You're right. In fact, I was there yesterday.
Sioux Falls has got them down on Philippines, but. They also have a lot more crews to do snow, both in communities and what Madison has.
Yeah, Madison, we're right in the neighborhood of 7,000, and I saw the sign yesterday when we went to the Children's Museum. Brookings, it's 23,000 population. The length of their main street isn't much longer than ours. So, than what we're talking.
Matt, you'll have to remind me on the 5th to 9th that's being considered. Are we looking at bump outs at every intersection? And I say that because there's the 8th Street that goes west of Egan. And that's just a dead end. Would you look at, is that being looked at or?
Yeah, basically, anywhere that there's a crossing. Essentially.
So if we remove some of those minor crossings, as I'll call them, you probably have 5th. What's the one on the north side of the library, that's 7th?
Yep.
5th, 7th, and 9th if you wanted it.
Yep.
That 8th is at different angles or different points where it turns off. I'd consider that kind of residential area again.
Yeah, I guess I'm going back to Dre's comment. I think if you're removing the bump outs, I would consider narrowing that lane back to 16. And then let you need a 17-foot lane. I think those bump outs were gonna kind of cause as a traffic control to get people slowed down in intersections. Whoever said it, they're right. The wider you make that, the faster people are gonna go.
What was the feel from your meetings on the bump outs? Pretty neutral overall.
I had more people that were wanting the bump outs than I did those who didn't want them. Just for the aesthetics, they feel like this is our one chance to create that gateway, create that really open space and create that, visual, and they feel like this is our one chance to get it right, and they'd like to see that really look nice and really be something that opens people up and, welcomes them to Madison.
How would you split those comments? You got 60-40, 70-30?
And again, this is just me, probably 75-25.
I would say even people that are against bump outs in general said it made sense to have them around DSU. But maybe not, further south.
Right.
So we're back to 9th, 7th and 5th that you
Wish I had a map here. And we're back to whatever, you can put them on one intersection,
Right.
all of them, none of them.
They've got maps over there, you can pull that up to it. Ryan will grab it.
I like them for the geophysical loss or something, because it does narrow that.
Okay, so 5th goes through Egan, 6th goes off to the east, 7th goes to the west, 8th goes east, and then after a while goes west. And obviously 9th goes all the way through.
4th goes all the way through.
So that would be 5th. And 6th.
The plan started at the last discussion we had started at 5th Street. Is that due to the proximity to Memorial Park, or, I mean, the DSU campus doesn't really start until 6th Street.
Yeah, it's the park, it's the park, yeah. And because that's the first through street south.
Okay.
No, south of
South of the
DSU.
campus. Yeah.
Fourth goes all the way through too.
4th goes all the way through.
And Jamie, you don't want to bump out.
I want them.
I don't want to.
She's on
I don't want them.
You're on 3rd, right?
We're on fourth.
Oh, you're on, you're both on 4th. That's right, okay.
One getting one, they both better have one.
Split it in half and share.
And the bump outs do add cost, right? In design and building.
Well, it becomes pavement if we take the bump out, so.
Okay. So kind of 6 and 1/2 doesn't it?
Yeah.
There be ADA challenges with sidewalk. I have to assume that makes it more difficult.
It makes it more difficult without them, yes.
How about your preliminary survey? Does it work into design at all? One way or the other?
Right now, we haven't really set anything in detail on the intersections because we were waiting for this question to be answered first.
But with lawns and, is it hope of grading in any instances where eliminating
It's gonna
walls?
go back to it won't be walls, it's gonna go back to the ADA ramps. Them having to be shorter, we probably will have to do some modified ones. To make it fit within the right of way. Cause you gain that 8 feet in either direction. With a bump out.
So the bump outs will go out how far?
8 feet, they would be basically the drive, or the parking.
Parking.
Oh, okay, so they'll be pretty significant. And then the angle of the bump out, that again for snow removal.
Yeah, we tried to make them pretty gradual, yeah.
Like a 45 or something.
Oh, that's it's more than that.
Okay,
It's almost like the same as a lane taper, you know, in a street. So if you have like a right turn lane, that basically that same angle.
Gary, could the city mark those?
Yeah.
I mean. Legitly.
If do we have like a model?
Yeah, I think we,
So if we do hit it, it might bounce over.
Gary, right now on the diagonal parking by DSU, who clears out that parking space?
Car state.
They do that, okay. So you just plow right past it and they come back later and get that, okay?
Usually it's full of cars.
Yeah.
And no matter what we do, we usually just try to keep it open during the storm, because it is a snow route, and then we gotta go back and do our cleanup, so.
Eric, do you hear any comments?
About this?
Yes.
Not necessarily in this area. I think people would enjoy them south of Second Street. You know, in the business area. More so than, in this area. But I know that's not the area that we're talking about, right? So, to answer your question, for this area, I don't hear anything about the bump outs. I mean, everybody would like it to look a lot nicer and a lot more inviting and everything like that, but I mean, I get Gary's side of it too, of the maintenance portion. So I don't know. I mean, if it's a safety thing, I don't know how busy are those intersections when college is in session. I don't know if they really are. I could be wrong, but it seems like when I'm driving up there and classes in session and stuff, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of college kids walking those intersections. But I'll say if you put bump outs in that part of Beacon, I'll kick and scream if we don't do it on the other part of Beacon when that gets redone.
Another reason to go to Second. Thanks, Eric.
I do have a quick comment too, I guess. I guess it was my understanding that we had already agreed on the bump outs from 5th to 9th. And I don't know if that's the public's perception too, but now it feels like if we're gonna go no bump outs, we're changing it again. So not sure on that.
Well, I attended the meetings in that, you know, all the meetings in that they've had and, you know, as Matt had mentioned, it was easier to draw them in the picture to start with and remove them later.
Yeah, to Kelly's point, maybe we could have been a bit more clear on that during our past conversations. The last time KLJ was here with us, it was for direction on design. And this is, I guess, direction on final design, which would be.
So this is the later. So this is the later we were talking about. So we kind of need to have direction now on what you guys want so that we can nail down those intersection items and figure out exactly how it's going to fit.
Kelly, do you have opinions or direction from you as one person?
Yeah, I guess I still kind of want to go with the fifth to ninth bump outs. I think it looks better and as far as walkability and safety there close to DSU, I think is good.
Kelly, would you be opposed to adding fourth into it?
I don't think so. I mean,
Cause that's another through street, so fifth is all the way through, so, and fourth goes back to the Catholic Church too, so we have kids that go across there, that walk to the Catholic Church.
sure. Yeah, I wouldn't have any opposition to that. But I do want to offer my apologies to Gary because I do understand that side too.
As long as we can mark them, that's my big thing, as long as we can visually mark them, so we don't take, you know, I know we're gonna have it happen, but.
I just want you to know that there's gonna be some damage. So
That's-
That and if the radiuses aren't real tight,
Yeah,
if they 45 over.
Yeah, I can,
So they're not, you're probably gonna lose one parking spot,
yeah.
at least, if you make that radius so that you can swing with your equipment.
As long as we can get the equipment to do it.
Keep in mind, once they get damaged, they aren't gonna look near as nice either.
We'll just have to put it in the budget to fix them, I mean, that's just how it's gonna have to be. But I struggle, I go back and forth, I understand where Gary's at, but I understand that this is the only shot we've got to make it look like a historic historic part of our town, so. And that's important as well.
And what's the reason for not having it on third? It doesn't go through?
Third.
To it.
I mean,
Oh, sorry.
I suppose.
I was gonna say second too.
Third is where the school buses turn to drop kids off and that, you know.
And,
so
and
that was
bus
one.
routes can be changed.
And all of the property owners at
If
third.
not in that area.
Correct,
They
yeah.
want to see that,
That goes from
What's
the
that?
75-25
drive over
ratio
the
to
curb.
100%
Yeah.
against their ratio.
because you gotta be on the right-hand side to drop the kids off, so. But that's why I'm third.
Bus routes can't be changed.
No, I didn't say that. I said you can change the route, but they'll still drive that way. And that, because they pull up to the curb, drop the kids off on the right-hand side,
Right.
so
Maybe they need to go all the way to Second and then come up Van Ness and pull up.
you can make that suggestion in school.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Okay, yeah. I mean, if we're gonna let go of beautification of a neighborhood because of a bus route, I'm sorry, but bus routes can be changed. This is gonna last forever. I'm not sure how long buses are gonna last. But just no opinion. And there are kids across down at the funeral homes that walk from St. Thomas, get off the bus at St. Thomas and walk over to the daycare down the street. So
Why was third?
The funeral homes were met with also, I don't know that they were anticipating bump outs in that there.
All of the property owners at third are against bump outs.
they're my
They're
neighbors,
what?
they're my neighbors too.
What did they say, Matt?
They're all against it,
Yeah.
all of them.
All of them down to third.
Yeah, 2 funeral homes, a church and a private
That
residence.
would be a nightmare. Really.
Well, it's kind of a bump out now.
Yeah.
On the east side. A little bit.
On the west side too, it's just like a curve this high with a round curve and it's not good.
One less or one more in your removal
I'm just.
amount to anything?
Trouble with them and that.
Why,
I mean. Yeah, it's just.
More
it's
practice.
working.
right, you gotta slow down and. Mike's got a nice broom attachment though, that's forgiving.
Great idea.
Yeah, we did.
doing city sidewalks into these streets.
We get that.
Ray and Adam, do you have a preference?
Go forth through nine.
I like them, and I get the heartache too with them, but
Are you 4th through 9th as well?
yeah.
Okay,
So this is the only area that would ever have them in Madison, now, the bump outs.
No, Main Street's done, I said.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, this is the decision that they're discussing for tonight. Years down the road, they might look at other streets. They might remove them years down the road. We don't know. I mean,
And they're
obviously,
designed
there's things
to
can
be
change
removed, correct?
from the
For the
design.
design.
Yeah.
From the design, yeah,
And
we're not gonna be designing them for
To be
taking them out
taken
in the
out.
future, but no,
What
we
if it-
can design them, or we can design with them in now. And it's easier for us to take them out of the design than it is to put them in. Yeah,
I just wanna make sure the homeowners are gonna take care of them. So if you have a corner lot, that bump out's yours, you're gonna mow it, you're gonna,
In all the meetings I attended, I didn't hear that discussion. So that may be a surprise to some of them, but right now I'm hearing 3 of the commissioners here in favor of going 4th to 9th. And I heard my opinion earlier in that, but I will support the majority.
back to your comment, how is that different from, kind of how they're laid out now? With
It's-
mowing,
I'm just saying, if I pick up 14 more bump outs to take care of it, they've got landscaping in them like Brookings, I'm saying. I'm not in favor of that.
these won't have landscaping, they'll be concrete and. I mean, just like we're.
on
Right, they're 8 feet wide.
the east side, potentially.
I mean, I'll
It'll
take
probably
two
be
at Tomahawk Park. That'll be fine for the park, for the city.
Yeah, I mean, I think the way we would be installing them wouldn't be with any decorations or bushes or anything like that. I'm not sure if it'd be concrete or grass, maybe that is.
On the east side, majority would be concrete, just because we have curb walk, well, assuming that that we stick with the shared use path. On the,
If they are grass, I think what Mike just wants it to be clear on the public record that we're expecting the adjacent property owner to be expected to be mowing and maintaining those grass bump outs. That's all you wanted, Mike, right? Perfect. Got it on the record for you.
So do we have final direction from the commission? 4th to 9th, 4th to 9th, 4th to 9th, Kelly?
Yes,
Hey, I'm gonna, support the majority, so.
just to
got
be
your
clear,
direction.
it's only narrowing Egan, not the side streets.
Correct.
Yes.
Next on the list here was landscaping. Did that meet? Was that one of the 4 items you had to get done tonight?
The tree replacement on private property.
Okay, and that falls into landscaping. Okay.
Yeah.
This is, a nice thing is if we're gonna take trees down on private property, we need to replace.
Yeah, I'm in support of that.
Do you have any estimate on retalking a handful of trees, a
Yeah,
dozen trees?
It's,
They said 6 to 8
yeah,
at the last meeting.
if you probably won't notice based on how many trees you're gonna put in the median.
So on the private property, I heard real quick that the commission's supportive of replacing the trees that end up being removed.
Kelly, you okay with that?
yeah, 100%. And can we try to do our best to notify the folks in advance? The ones that we are gonna most likely have to replace.
We are attempting already to meet with every property owner that will lose a tree. We have met with probably half of them already. There's a few that we're having trouble getting in touch with, and we're gonna try and come up with another strategy on how to get in touch with them.
Okay. And then the last item on here that I have is shared use path. Shared use path.
Correct, and in previous discussions, the commission wanted to see a shared use path on the east side, a 8-foot shared use path on the east side along the whole corridor. With the amount of comments we had from the public meeting in opposition to that, we just want to make sure that you guys are taking a second look at that decision.
Well, correct me in that, if I'm wrong. But part of the area is 6 foot already. And will be 6 foot in the future. And that, so it does look different to go like this and then come back out again. So I guess if those areas that are 6 foot and will remain a minimum of 6 foot. I guess I would like to see the sidewalk be straight. So in my mind, we're probably discussing between 6 and 8 foot as the choices in that.
And to elaborate on the blocks, 6 to 8 along the issue has an 8 foot.
I think there's 10 foot now.
But has a wide sidewalk. 5th to 6th is 6 foot and would need to be 6 foot with retaining walls. And so the biggest question is going to be that 2nd to 5th, 3 blocks there that are currently 4 foot.
And actually half of the block south of Fifth will have retaining walls too, so it'll be 6 foot as
Just a
well.
little bit more of that,
Yeah.
2.5 or 1.5 blocks would have the retaining wall. We've mentioned in the past that we could apply for funding, we may or may not get it from Transportation Alternatives to assist with this connective sidewalk. What's the minimum width that we would have to be eligible for that?
Anything that's non-motorized transportation would be eligible for that.
But I mean, if we had
The-
4 foot 8 foot, 4 foot 8 inch sidewalk, that wouldn't be eligible. I
It
think?
would be, yes.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, anything that's non-motorized transportation.
Okay, so in that case, it would just be designating it as a non-motorized.
Yep.
But it probably wouldn't be very effective.
It would be a standard sidewalk, which they still fund,
Okay, that's good to know.
having a shared use path that allows for a bike component makes that application more attractive to the DOT. But not necessarily disqualifies you for funding.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
Another question that I have is on this east side, it's going to be curbside.
Yes, because,
Because
with the
of the
wall.
Because of the wall.
Yep,
So now when you get down to Fourth, that means that they will gain lawn.
Yeah.
On the east side of the new sidewalk.
yeah, the back walk will end up being somewhere in the middle of the existing walk. And then there won't be a grass boulevard between the walk and the curb. It'll be concrete directly adjacent to the curb.
Did you catch that before, Kelly? Because I did. At the previous meetings. That you guys will gain lawn.
Gain lawn. Lose trees, gain lawn. Lose all trees.
Well, you may gain lawn, but you don't, aren't necessarily gaining ownership of that land. It's still in the right of way.
Understood.
We get more lawn,
I don't know.
I imagine this is probably the topic you guys are here to speak on
Yes.
specifically.
Yeah.
You want to come up and address?
You've gone through the whole.
This is John Gomez.
No, but the wife, is it going to?
8th to 9th, I don't think it'd be any wider than 4 foot 8 currently.
So different.
The designs I think would be, but if you're asking about the current. And I'll check with Ryan, currently 8th to 9th would be just normal 4 foot 8 sidewalk.
No, I think we're looking at. I think it's.
Not in the plans, in reality right now.
In reality, yeah, correct.
Yeah, okay, in the plans, the shared use was the whole way at that 8 foot. Does that answer your question? Okay,
Right, they wanted 8 foot all the way. Originally.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the original proposal.
It's a historic district. I think it would look terrible. We have, what do they have, an 8 foot sidewalk on the west side, and then we'd have a normal
Six
size.
now.
Well, 6.
It's down to 6 now,
Is
is
it
that my
down?
understanding? Not 8?
You know, I think the current design still have it at 8, right?
Current design has it 8, the minimum is 6, for the curve walk. Which is all but a block and a half essentially. Needing to be curve walk because of the walls.
But we're on it,
Yes.
yeah.
Well, the reason we came was to let you guys know again that we were against that. I know the last time we were here at a meeting, can't remember which commissioner it was. Thought maybe we could compromise at 5 foot. And we've thought about that, and we decided, yes, we could deal with a 5 foot sidewalk. But we didn't wanna see anything wider than that. And some of the other reasons have already been brought up, you know, with the snow removal and the cost of repairs down the road. Now with these bump outs, we weren't expecting those.
No.
I'm assuming we're gonna be removing all the snow out of the bump outs. Along with the sidewalks. Where we're gonna put all this snow. And then the sidewalk's gonna be adjacent to the curb.
We all know what happens when you put a bucket down and you start pushing snow. I'm gonna be pushing snow out onto the road, cause it's gonna come off the sides of the bucket. So what happens there? I know somebody suggested plowing before the snow plows come out, but that's up 2 in the morning, right? And plus you guys plow for the snow route all the time, constantly, so. That's just not gonna work. I feel like we're just using this as an excuse to put a 6-foot sidewalk in because of a retaining wall. I've got a retaining wall made out of wood out of my house. It's been there for 15 years and it hasn't moved. I got no cement to hold it in place, so. I don't believe that. Like I say, we're on a corner lot, so you're gonna have a. South side of our house is gonna be a standard 58-inch sidewalk, 56,
4'8".
4'8", whatever that comes to. And then, so then you're gonna have 6 to 8 foot on the other side. One side's gonna be along the curb, the other side's got probably, what we measure, 10 foot between the curb and the sidewalk. It's just gonna look stupid.
We have grown trees on one side and
Plus, yeah, gonna lose 4 trees. We know how many years it takes to grow those. I understand that to a certain extent, I guess I'm not sure what utilities are underground on the east side. I don't know if anybody can answer that.
drainage.
There's lots of different utilities in the boulevard now, and that was just a policy that the city has. To not replace trees within the boulevard because of
Well, I'm not,
the concerns.
I guess I'm not arguing with, whether you're gonna replace them or not, that's not my argument. My argument was that we're not taking trees out just because we wanna take trees out, you know?
And the 8-foot sidewalk, that's,
I mean, you look over at the creek there where they're redoing the creek. And I know we talked about that, and I understand the one tree's on private property, but still. Look at all those beautiful trees we lost. The only tree left standing is the one that's been dead for 10 years. Completely dead. That one's still standing there, but I realize that one's on private property, but. You think the city could have got together with the property owner and said, hey, as long as we're here, can we get this dead tree out of here, as long as we took all the other live ones out?
Well, the Corps of Engineers, that's a whole different.
Well, I understand that, yes, I know.
We're kind of at the mercy of their design.
Right. And I just think it's gonna look lopsided having one sidewalk against the curb on one side and the other. I don't know how much space is between the curb and the sidewalk on the west side.
Yeah, I'd like
Probably 8 feet or so. It's going back basically exactly in the configuration it is on that.
Right.
you know, we just put in, that sidewalk
2 years ago.
per the city's asking. And now we're gonna rip it back out and
At least this time it won't be your expense, so that's.
Well, I understand that.
I totally understand.
just our maintenance, but
I don't know where we're, I mean, where we're,
8 foot, I think, is inviting,
all that snow's got to be piled on our property.
well, and plus it's.
We can't push it out on the road.
You talk about people passing, well, they're gonna use that 8 foot to pass.
And now, if you wanna talk about safety, having a sidewalk against the curb, now you have a safety issue. Cause people open up their car doors when somebody's coming by on a bicycle. Right now, you don't have a safety issue with that, cause the sidewalk's not against the curb. You're creating a safety problem having that sidewalk against the curb. Can you imagine a kid doing 20 mile an hour on his bicycle and somebody pulls in and opens up their car door?
I've seen that in the video.
Yes, yes.
You do have, parallel parking on yours, where at
Right.
least on Highway 34. Theirs is right up against the curb and it's 6 foot,
Mhm.
so.
I don't know, we're just begging you guys not to go more than 5 foot.
The one thing that I would ask you, and that is, since the rest of the, is 6 foot
Mhm.
because the retaining walls. If we went 6 foot, would you be comfortable with that?
I guess I never gave that much thought. I mean,
Well,
we've been
you
thinking
know,
5.
I didn't realize that, state law requires it to be
Right.
6 foot away from a retaining wall. And I'm visualizing coming down and then dropping in 12 inches and then going back out again.
Well, I don't know, I mean, I guess I've seen spot places where they go around trees and,
And that I
You
will
know,
say, you know, when
fire.
Royce Uners, you know, got the sidewalk committee together, I was on the beginnings of that. And at that point in time, and that to get sidewalks in town and that, we just said we would work with the property owners and that, you know, and put it as needed. And so if you went down 9th Street, yes, it did go around the trees and other places it did too. The other thing we also agreed way back then when Royce was alive and that in the city has continued it, is that anywhere that the cost to the homeowner, like for a retaining wall or anything additional, the city paid for that portion. So I would envision down the road and that, you know, if your sidewalk is wider than the person across the street, I would think that the commission would say, yes, you're right. You know, you covered the 4'8" cost and that we will make up the difference. I can envision that down the road because we've been doing that for 20, well, how long's been Roy's been gone? 30 years, pretty
and
close.
plus I think it'd look a lot nicer if the sidewalk on the east side is the same width as the one on the west side. I mean. If there, it just would look a lot nicer, it just. Like I said, I know some people don't think much of a historic district, but
We put 6-foot sidewalks on the other side.
Well, that's all basically gonna be boulevard walk with the grass strip in between. The reason the
Yeah, they
6
get
foot
the
is
grass strips,
clearance
yeah.
because of the curb.
And the retaining wall.
Yeah. Cause in the right of way, ADA says you have to have a 4-foot clear path and you have to have recovery zones. So, if you have a 4-foot up against the curb, there's no recovery zone that can go off the curb. If you have a retaining wall and then you need a 4-foot path clear of the retaining wall. So it ends up being basically 6 foot is the minimum you can put in curbside with the retaining wall.
and so how tall is this retaining wall gonna be? I was just told it's gonna be slanted, it's gonna be cut down.
That's so we don't have to put railings on the top of it.
The yard behind the retaining wall would be sloped somewhat into the property owner so that the retaining wall could be lower.
There's probably
To
one
avoid that.
property that would warrant a
Just-
higher than 30 retaining wall. And
5
we would
feet.
try to slope back their yard to get that down below that 30-inch threshold.
And all these rules and regulations that you're saying, is that all because of the federal grant?
Nope.
That's
Federal
not,
law.
have nothing to do with federal grants.
My, liability as a professional engineer, I have to follow these codes for public safety and access. So ADAG, governs actually it's ProAg, governs the, sidewalks within a public right of way. They have to meet these ADA regulations, which include clearance and, recovery zones, et cetera. And then I'm not positive the one for the retaining wall, but I mean, essentially that's a safety issue where they say if it's greater than a 30-inch drop, you have to have a handrail essentially to keep people from falling off.
Typically, the height of your table right there is 30 inches. So that'd give you an idea.
Gary, how's that handled in the business district with those sidewalks and the roads? And
Speaking of snow removal, I
Yeah,
assume?
yeah, sorry.
What was it?
So,
Snow removal downtown with the sidewalks. I think they push it into the street, right?
Yeah.
You want to kind of talk about that timeline, that process?
Yeah, we just. Normally, we just try to get everything open. And we don't worry about getting too specific about the snow until the final cleanup, so we go through everything and we would like, these snow routes, we'll run them, just try to keep them open, that's what they're designed to do. But then once we get downtown, we're just trying to keep that open and then we'll pull it to the middle and then when we do the final cleanup, we could go down there 3-4 times in a snowstorm, easy. And they just keep pushing it in, we keep pulling it into the middle and pulling it out of there, so. I would say that if. I don't think anybody would get in trouble up there if they didn't get their snow removed right away. Cause we're always gonna be back. Especially when it's somewhere else.
We're back to clean up.
Yeah, we're always back up there to clean up.
So now we do have an ordinance against people blowing snow in the street. But in this situation where it's curbside, you would accept that?
On those sidewalks, yeah, I would say it's just what we have to do. Ask that they do, but if they run out of room, we're gonna haul it away anyway.
And the snow removal ordinance does allow it to happen downtown, be pushed in there.
Yeah, but now we're on.
I understand that, so I would say, if that's the direction the city wants to go, we would want to update the ordinance to make sure that our practice aligns with that.
Yeah.
That ordinance, is pretty good.
Yeah.
That's real good.
It's, I mean, there you have buildings, here you're
That's-
gonna have walls, you know, to.
Yeah.
Pull away from.
You're gonna have to be specific on that, because there's a lot of different places around town that.
I was just gonna say on
Yeah,
Highway
yeah.
34 now, that is curbside on the north side and retaining walls. Do they typically go along and blow that into the street? Cause I know you haul it from there.
And that's the main reason we do that, is because the curb and, you know, years ago, that curb or that sidewalk wasn't on that curb. So
Right.
we had a little room to plow that to the sides. And then when they came through, we did it, then we didn't have any other option but to pull it in, so.
So then the homeowners and that, on that one can also blow it onto the street.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, it's not.
Not
perfect,
ideal,
Not an
but
ideal situation, but it's honestly.
Got some updating to do anyways. With that already.
Are you gonna allow trees to be put back on the right away, boulevard,
Boulevard.
or, well, the boulevard
In
is
the right of way.
the right of way.
I actually can't speak towards the policy in terms of planting trees in the boulevard. I don't know if Mike or Ryan or Gary.
I can tell you what we do in the past. We've never limited anybody to planting anything in the right of way after they've removed them. We ask them to be mindful of the intersections. To not impede the intersections, not to plant evergreens in them, you know, stuff that's gonna. You know, but we usually let them go. Unless it's a certain way, you know, if it's a super narrow one. You probably don't wanna plant it there anyway, because it's gonna push sidewalk up in the future anyway, so. I mean, if you only have a 16 or 18 inch grass strip and you plant a tree in it. You're gonna have, it's gonna push your curb up and it's gonna push your sidewalk up and in return. you're
And
gonna
we're not gonna have much of a right of way anyway with the sidewalk against the curb,
So,
you know, so.
from my understanding, that there probably wouldn't be.
I mean, we did hire a professional surveyor, so we are gonna have it. Our property surveyed, so we know exactly where the lines are, which to me is a normal thing to do, so.
I assume KLJ, you guys already surveyed,
We surveyed, but we didn't find many property pins along the right of way, just enough basically to get a line.
right, but did
But
you
we didn't-
establish any right of, any,
I got an email from somebody, I don't know if it's you.
We have a line along the right of way, defining the right of way. But we did not find many individual property pins, say, between lots. So, you know, the exact, I guess, boundary of each property is not determined.
And that survey didn't reestablish property pins that were absent. So
Correct.
maybe that'd be something that your survey would look at.
We mentioned to them that,
You can see. the
I think you guys only found one that was on our corner,
Yeah.
and that was on the north corner. Yeah, so hopefully,
I don't know how accurate these are, but by this map, there's how much green space is gonna be, is the sidewalk gonna be tight to the?
They're on the other side of the street.
On the east side, John Goman's house.
I think we should look. At establishing some of these characteristics before we get.
I
Too
mean, so
far.
you'd have the bump out section, but then you're gonna impede the intersection, so I would say that probably wouldn't be the best to plant a tree that's gonna be at the bump out.
no, I don't think we would, no. I guess kind of off subject a little bit. Fire hydrants, are they all gonna be the same as where they are now? We aren't adding any more, or?
Good question.
Cause that's another thing where you gotta have snow removal for.
I'd assume there'd be the same as what they are now, might add one, just depending on spacing.
But you don't know
On that
where,
block?
you don't know where.
Right, nowhere for sure. No.
I see Ryan's leaning forward, so do you have any thoughts?
We typically put them one every block, so one every 4, so I'm not sure what we have there currently, but that would be.
There's one across the street from us on the.
Well, and the utilities are on that side, so there's no reason to run a fire hydrant on the opposite side of the street. Yeah.
And you guys had mentioned something about the drainage. There's two
Drain
drains.
basins there now.
Yep, and we have,
And you're gonna eliminate one?
I'm not sure, like I said, we haven't done the detailed grading on the intersections because of the questions on the bump outs.
Okay.
But yeah, we have a pipe coming from the northeast quadrant of that intersection that goes directly into the box culvert, as it does now.
And will that be the same diameter or bigger? If you're gonna, if you drop down to one
Drop it
basin,
down to one.
It'll probably be bigger, cause we're just, I don't know what the sizes are now, generally we don't put anything less than 8 much, so.
And one of them is on Egan and one of them's on Fourth.
yes.
I'm just wondering on the one on Fourth, does that just go straight across to the creek?
Or they dump right into the bridge. Yeah. They come right in the bridge.
Okay,
Well, do they tie together or are they separate?
They're separate,
Separate?
yeah.
but they come right down and they go right into the bridge.
Right. Cause I just thought if you lose one, it's gonna be slower drainage, I guess, to me,
Right.
but. We're just preventing anything from flooding.
Yeah. So basically what we're still thinking, wondering here, and that is, it's gonna be 6 foot for down past all the retaining walls. And just that one block would drop down to 5 foot and then it would be 6 foot again. And my question was, is that,
Yeah, if the,
would it make sense to, if it's gonna be a minimum 6 anyway? We're talking between 6 or 8? As a question.
yeah, there's a couple questions. Do you want to transition back to a boulevard walk for that one block? Which can be done, but again, it's gonna look weird with a transition there. If you go curbside walk, 6 is the minimum. And we had previously, been given direction to go with an 8-foot shared use path. So that, I would say that's your two choices. If you're gonna go with curbside walk the full distance, so you don't have the transition. It's a 6, or we can do 8 for the shared use path.
Kelly, your thoughts?
So what you're saying, curbside would be 6 foot from curb to the retaining wall?
6 foot from the curb to the back of walk.
To the retaining wall.
Which would
Well,
be
if
the phase
you
of the wall
have
where
one,
there is a
yeah.
wall, you won't have a wall.
We don't.
No, I'm talking about up the
Yeah.
road.
Correct.
So,
6 foot of
so how would you put an 8-foot shared use pathway in then if you're gonna have a retaining wall that's only 6 foot from the curb to the retaining wall?
That's what we're saying is it's either 6 foot sidewalk or a 8 foot sidewalk.
Then you'd move the retaining wall further back.
Retaining wall be further
But it
back.
would still be within the right of way.
Mhm.
Yeah, I guess this is Kelly. My quick opinion, I guess I have two kind of points on this one is, first, I think, people's modes of transportation have gotten more and more creative over the years. And so that's why I would be more in favor of a shared use path, as well as, reverting back to our strategic plan and having a better conduit between our downtown and DSU has been identified as something we need to do better with. So again, I'm in favor of the mixed use path on the east side.
I don't have the numbers off the top of my head here, but I went, like I said, that last meeting, I went back and looked at my security cameras. And I can't remember the numbers for sure off the top of my head, but there's only like, I wanna say 30 bicyclists in 2 months that came by and 8 skateboarders. I just don't think a 8-foot shared use pathway is all that necessary.
Ray, what are your?
How's the condition of the current sidewalks there? I don't,
Well, ours is brand new.
Brand new.
right, but the whole strip.
I don't think they're all
Part
that
of
bad.
it's, part of it's because it goes uphill, to their north neighbors and then drops down. So I would think that the majority of people, if they're gonna ride bikes or anything, are doing it on the street right now.
Yeah, they are.
And I was gonna mention, yeah, but not for those bicycles, 3/4 of them were on the street, not the
Yeah.
sidewalk.
Or are they avoiding this area too? Well, I don't know. I'm
I don't
asking
I have no
the
idea.
questions.
I don't know that.
But had you
anybody's
thought about that
done
kind of
any
thing
research on that.
back when you did Ninth Street, that's a big area.
That should have had a shared use pathway with all the kids walking back and forth to the elementary school.
And I don't disagree with you on that.
Well, like I say, we're 5 foot is what we asked for, but. I don't know, I'm pretty sure 6 foot's gonna be the minimum. After you guys discuss it tonight, but. Well,
While
I
you
guess,
were out, Kelly said he was in favor of the 8-foot shared use. So I'm looking to you and Dre for thoughts.
Well, thank you guys for.
Thank you.
what we did.
Yeah,
I appreciate
thank
it.
you.
Yes, thank
the
you.
engagement.
Okay.
I'll clarify, or I'd like to clarify a couple things and just make sure I'm on the same page with my notes here. When it comes to depositing snow in the streets, when the sidewalk is right next to the curb, it sounded like we were supportive of allowing residents to do that. And we can bring ordinance to change that at the right point. One thing that staff, I think, would be supportive of is when we have, looking down the road, cracked sidewalks or sidewalks in need of repair or replacement. And we do our sidewalk project and we assess that to the property owners. That's of course for, 4-foot, 8-foot sidewalks that are standing across town. And staff feel it would be fair that if the mixed use, shared use path would be, would we be in that bucket in the future that we would look at assessing 4-foot, the cost of a 4-foot, 8-inch sidewalk rather than the cost of an 8-foot sidewalk, and the city would eat the rest of the cost. If this is something that the city's electing to do for community connectivity, it's only fair that the property owners don't bear that cost. Is there any concern with that?
No, that's something we've done since Roy.
And I'll point out, Davis, in that,
Yeah.
where there's retaining walls, this sidewalk is gonna be the footing. So it's going to be more expensive than standard sidewalk to replace down the road, so that's another reason why sharing that cost is a good move.
Okay.
The sidewalk is the footing.
Yes.
With the
Was it
retaining.
So
retaining?
it's dugout sidewalk or,
No, well, it's 6 inches and it's reinforced. It's a standard DOT, detail that they use. Basically, you have a 6-inch fully reinforced sidewalk holding up or resisting the, retaining wall force, essentially.
Do the rest of the sidewalks have 6 inch?
No, just where the retaining.
What size or what depth?
It'll be the standard city depth.
Typically 4-inch.
Right.
Right?
You say 4 inches, yeah.
or like for like, I assume, right?
Okay, thank you. Those two items are helpful for me. As I've considered this, I think that the two concerns that come to me highest would be the snow, the added snow removal responsibility and the added cost for future maintenance. I think those two items would help to address those concerns.
I'm sorry, but one thing real quick. Even no matter what you guys decide on tonight, that still has to pass the section 106, correct? That has to be approved for that.
NEPA For
Oh,
federal.
yeah. Yeah, it would still go through NEPA and still go through SHPO as well.
Right.
For the historic
Right,
and the
section
environmental.
106.
Yeah.
They could still deny it.
Yeah, I'm assuming if that's what we're submitting it for, I'm not familiar with the process myself.
So it sounds like 6 foot would be the minimum that we could go, listening to the engineers over here. So although we wanted 5, we could probably deal with a 6 versus the 8. So I just want to throw that out before you guys decide.
Neighbor, what are your thoughts?
She's on the other
I'm on
side.
the other side of the road.
It doesn't
So
matter.
it doesn't matter. And I have that, I don't think you're gonna put a retaining wall all in my business, or in my yard. I have no problem, in fact, I'm excited to have a curb and gutter. But I'm just here to push the side that.
Yeah.
The beautification and the reason we're doing it and. Yeah, and I didn't realize until tonight that that sidewalk was gonna be just like out on Old 34. Is, I don't,
Old 34? No, new 34.
Well, it's the same.
is 6 foot.
Bachman Park is what I'm talking.
Oh, I don't know what the sidewalk is about, I don't think it's 6 foot.
No,
Oh, no,
the,
I'm saying is it gonna be sidewalk road,
Oh.
Yes.
and
yes,
that's what Egan Avenue is gonna be?
There will be
it will be like Highway 34 going to Pizza Ranch from downtown.
the difference between this and Bachman is that there's gonna be a curve there, which does help to add a minimal layer of protection, but it would be
You walk
adjacent
on
to
the
the.
west side of Egan Avenue, you'll be right next to
East
traffic.
side.
East side, I'm sorry.
Yeah, west side, you'll still have a boulevard of, I think Matt said 8 foot earlier between the
Yeah.
curve and the sidewalk.
Actually,
Yeah,
not
and
really.
yeah.
If you're walking on the east side of Egan Avenue going up to DSU, you will be walking beside the parked cars.
Yeah.
And the driving lane will be 8 foot out. If you're gonna walk from downtown to Pizza Ranch on the north side, now you're walking walking right beside vehicles doing 30 miles an hour.
Thank you, Vanna. Mike.
Yeah.
I have one question. Does eliminating the shared path do anything for the federal guidelines or,
No,
okay, so either way.
they cover any non-motorized transportation.
Right there, so. They'll be right on the curb, with the bump outs. I don't know what part.
Had a lot of discussion. I'll try to summarize. I think the final consideration we're looking for is the width of the sidewalks on the east side, primarily between Second and Fifth. Because we know from Fifth to Sixth, it's gonna be at least 6 foot, and 6th to 8th is currently 10. I would say whatever we do to Third through Fifth, we'll do from Fifth to Sixth. It's with the minimum of 6 foot there. So really, I think we can dive down on that Second to Third, what you would like to see.
Yes, the Second Street block asked for curbside sidewalk. They do not want to.
That makes sense.
So really, it's just from Third to Fifth, or Third to Fourth. Ish.
Just that one.
Is gonna be 6 feet.
Yes.
Yes, the Fifth and Sixth have to be at least 6 foot. If you did an 8 foot south and north, we would make that 8 foot as well.
Correct.
That's what I see.
It has to be, 4/7.
And so, again, you were out and Kelly said he was his preference. I'd see you jump in.
Yeah, I
I can't hear you.
I'm sorry, we can't.
No, I just said, what I said to him was, Kelly said he was in favor of 8 foot. And that I would like to see, hear what these two gentlemen preference would be.
I'm on with the, just our community survey, the connectivity, the paths, so that leads me, if either way, leaning to the 8.
I would be with the 6, but I will support with whatever the majority does.
I'm looking for you to make the majority. That puts the ball in your court, doesn't it?
Mayor, do you have a preference between 6 or 8?
I can support either one of them. I guess, the question initially and that came from, the city survey, and if we go by the input that we had from there, I guess I would support the 8 foot.
One thing I will say is that a lot of people, especially this time of the year, I suppose there's students checking out Dakota State, and so we've had a lot of people walk by. And when they walk by my house, they walk 2 by 2, but when they're across the street, they can kind of walk down in group. So a wider sidewalk, that's a great idea. I didn't ever think that, but now that I see it with my own eyes, that the bigger groups go over there and it's a lot more conducive to that.
Well, and back when I was on the committee with Royce, we had so many people tell us nobody walks in town. And we still, once in a while, will get somebody that says, well, nobody walks on my street. Well, and once the sidewalk started coming in, we found out, yeah, people didn't walk on the sidewalk because there wasn't one. They walked on the streets. And some of you can remember back, and unfortunately, some of the DSU students, and that for, I'm gonna say for track, for lack of not really knowing. When they run, they still run in the streets instead of on the sidewalks, you know? And, you know, back when, Dr. Sample was here and that one young lady got hit by a car and. You know, and fortunately, he was on duty and realized that her blood pressure and heart rate was of a runner rather than a standard person. And I'm all for sidewalks in that, so even when we began, we allowed them, you know, work with homeowners. And that's why some of them meandered around trees and still do, you know, so. You know, if we're looking at making this, you know, the gateway, you know, in town. With the bump outs and everything else and that, I think an 8-foot, you know, that extra 2 feet and that is gonna, you know, fit in. And you brought up a good point, Jeannie, and that's where, you know, people will walk more side by side.
Yeah, more.
You know.
Than that.
And it'll also probably bring out more kids on bikes. Riding to downtown that way too, rather than on some of the other streets or in the street, so. But again, that whoever's on that particular sidewalk, same as on the other side, they're gonna be on the side of the parked cars. Not walking beside the fast moving cars like we have on Highway 34, so. So I guess at this point in time, and that the direction is to move forward, you know, with the design of an 8-foot. So. Those are the 4 things that I had down that you had as questions.
Yep, I'll make a brief comment on one of the items listed within the document and the agenda packet. Construction phasing, specifically parking for residents who won't have good options during construction. I have been speaking to DSU about trying to find an agreement to have some parking spots on their campus and in their lot, and they're open and supportive of that. It's a matter of determining how many spots we think we need and then getting something approved. I hope that we would do the best we can to align our construction phasing so that that's all occurring during the summer months when the students are gone, and DSU is going to be open to us sharing their lot with us. So that is something that we have already engaged with them on a couple of occasions. The last item on here then is simply lighting. We don't have to have an answer on that tonight. But if you have any thoughts or direction, we certainly can take that tonight too.
I like what was presented there. It's not your standard wood or metal. Light pole.
And remind me, Matt, would there be one with lights facing both directions, or would there be?
Yeah.
There would be both, yeah, it would all be facing both directions.
Okay, so one light pole in the middle would have an arm going off each direction.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, we just didn't have pictures of that.
that's fine, yeah. Yeah. Any other thoughts on the lighting?
I just wish it would look more historic than what it is, but.
And I like the idea that it'll also be, you know, current lighting to what we have in other streets and that for maintenance and upkeep and.
One thing about lighting, you're gonna wanna make sure that they're rated because DSU hangs their
Right.
stock on good, so.
Yeah. We'll move forward with the direction of pursuing that type of lighting. There will be opportunity to change of course in the future if we need to. Matt, if you could give me some specs on those, I wanted to discuss with the election department, see if they'd have any feedback on that particular lighting.
Project timeline, 2-year project, 1 year.
Let's see, so. Our current thoughts on phasing, would be. Do the first block from 2nd to 3rd in the spring of, 2025. Basically, so that those funeral homes and the churches and the bank, they get their impact done once and then they're done, you know, as fast as we can get through that first block. And then for the rest of the summer of 25, do the west half from 3rd to 5th, I believe. Then flip over and do the east half from 3rd to 5th. Then the second year in 26, do the west half from 5th up to 9th, and then do the east half from 5th up to 9th.
And you mean start, finish, not.
Yep.
Yeah.
And in the transition between the two phases over the winter shutdown, we'd have temporary pavement or something to make sure that you could maintain it over the winter. And that's also maintaining, other than the first block, maintaining two-way traffic the entire time.
Yeah.
Other questions or comments?
That's all that we were looking for, so there's nothing else. Thank you for all your time. Thanks for all the info.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, number 16, June financial updates.
Okay. So the first thing is we had auditors on site May 28th. They were here for 3 days and completed the in-person portion of the 2022 audit. That was the first note we had. That has not been completed at this time. We're still working through that. City of Madison has been awarded a $1.02 million community development block grant, which will be used by the LAIC for the Early Learning Center project. The updates included in the slides are year-to-date through May of 2024. We're currently 41.67% through the year. General cash on hand is 21.85 million total. Investments are at 13.6 million. Checking is at 6.9 million. Money market at 1 million and other is 280,000. Restricted cash is 612,274. These are the revenue guidelines that we have coming in. I will say that our I feel that the numbers are skewed in this for the water, electric and sewer fund. And this is due to the fact that we have long-term debt issued. That long-term debt, if we were to eliminate it from the projected budget, water would fall in the line of 32%, electric 35% and sewer fund 42%. Putting those in line with projections.
Yeah, essentially that long-term debt is the loans for our projects. Our revenue guidelines look like water is low at, 10%. When we're 40-some% of the way through the year, but that's because we just haven't gotten those loan funds in until those projects are complete. As Amy said, when you take those out, our revenues are doing well in line with that 41% of the way through the year.
And we did rework these slides this month, so you're seeing a little more data than you probably have in the past. We can modify that if it's not something you want to see. Right now, I just feel like transparency is really key, so.
Oh, these are good.
And this is our expenditures report as well. Sales tax, last month we did see a big increase. Jameson, did you ever have any?
Any
Clarification?
answer?
Yeah.
No, we haven't heard anything from the state, but the sales tax reports for this month still show that previous month's influx of a 50% increase year over year for April. And so at this point, we believe it's something that isn't a mistake and that we'll be keeping. We don't know why it happens. Sometimes companies maybe were audited and realized that they hadn't paid enough sales tax, and so they have a big payment to make up for that. Otherwise, maybe somebody had a very large project going on that we're not aware of that came through. But whatever the reason is, it looks like that large April number is valid.
Egg sales.
We still did have an increase of 15% for the month of May, so still trending well. This is the graph.
So it looks like we dropped a lot, but if you just look year over year for the month of May, we're still up significantly from where we were.
15%, correct. And that is it. Questions? And a thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and with that, we are at public comment. Do we have any public comment out there?
We did with,
The Woolmans were signed up, but I think it was for the.
correct.
Okay, yeah, no, yeah, so we're good on that one. Okay, under announcements, triple engagement initiative launch, value surveys, Java Jameson, communication survey, and Jameson, I'm gonna ask you to add a little bit more
Yeah.
of that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the value survey is this, the city as an organization is creating values for how we do work and how we prioritize our work in our community. And so we've gathered input from our employees and now we want to gather input from the public in terms of what they think our values should be. So that is going to be rolled out and open tomorrow on all of our social media and in a press release that residents can take an online survey to give us what their opinions are on the top values that we should be having as a city.
And if they are not online, they can also get the survey.
Yeah, there are paper copies available at City Hall, the community center, and the public library. And then the second is Job with Jameson. This is a opportunity to come speak with myself as city administrator, have some coffee. No, I did not come up with the name, but I am very excited for it and looking forward to meeting with any residents that want to come and talk to whatever's on their mind. So that will be on June 26th at the depot in the morning from 8:30 to 10:30. And we'll also have some paper surveys for the value survey there as well. And then another survey is on communication. The city is launching a communication survey for residents. So this is another opportunity we're looking to for the public to give us their feedback and their engagement. We are looking to, well, we're always looking to improve our communication, and to do that, we want to start taking a survey so that we can get a baseline of where we're at. And as we start doing more of these initiatives, we can see where we've improved and where we have more opportunities to improve. And that is the triple engagement initiative. Big shout out to Savannah Olinger, our communications and marketing coordinator, who has been putting a lot of work in on these initiatives as well as a bunch of others. She's doing a great job.
All right. And with that, our next regular commission meeting will be July 1st, 2024.
And then I have one more announcement. If that was good.
Please join. Please do.
Planning meeting. So a couple months ago, the city commission approved a policies and procedures document, and within there, we established that we will be holding planning meetings every quarter. And these are for the purpose of engaging in strategic planning, goal setting, updates on key projects or issues and other planning purposes. So the intent is to start holding them quarterly. And the first one will be 1 week from today, June 24th at noon. We're going to try having some of these meetings at noon to see how that goes. In general, no action is going to be taken at these meetings that are for discussion purposes and for planning. They will be operated just like our meeting is tonight in this room, obviously open to the public and posted. The agenda is posted at least 24 hours in advance. I will say that the three topics that we will cover on that meeting are first, the strategic plan, providing an update on the progress for implementation. Second, a communications plan for our year, in line with what I was just speaking in the survey, initiatives we have for communicating this year and opportunities for improvement. And the third topic for that planning session is on the Sportsplex, which would be a review of the operations, usage, finances. It's been operating for a few months now, and we want to take an initial look at how that's been going and make sure that we collect input if we need to make any changes, and just share that information with the public. So those are the three topics for the planning session. Again, 1 week from today in this meeting room at noon.
Okay, anyone else? All right, again, with that, our next regular meeting will be July 1st, 2024. And with that, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Same sign. Motion carried. One thing I will mention that we could put on that meeting. I had one gentleman who is Lord.